Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Red Donkey Projections. I'm Eric and we have Lucas as always.
Hey everyone.
Today is May 6th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about the 2022 South Carolina gubernatorial election. We're going to be talking about the candidates, their odds, and a little bit of background and compare them to some similar 2018 midterm races.
In particular, we'll be taking a look at Joe Cunningham's chances at winning this election, which he recently announced, I believe 2 weeks ago or last week, that he would be seeking this very hard to win governor seat. And with that being said, let's get right into it. So, those of you who don't know, Joe Cunningham is the former representative from South Carolina's first congressional district, which is actually a pretty Republican district. It was, currently the Cook PVI does have it as R+7. It was a complete upset in 2018 when Joe Cunningham won this seat pretty narrowly. So, let's actually take a look at how much of an upset it actually was. Joe Cunningham was given a 9.4% chance at winning this election. And, and according to 538, this was the second biggest upset of the 2018 cycle, of course, behind Kendra Horn and Oklahoma fifth. But this was a very big surprise to many people who thought that South Carolina one would stay a Republican. But we got to keep in mind, this was in 2018. This was a very solid performance for Democrats in the House. Actually, more than solid. It was a very excellent performance for Democrats in the House, picking up a net 41 seats. He won in a very, very narrow margin, but again, this was a blue wave year. It'll be interesting to see if he can replicate it again in 2022, and we'll be discussing why that is pretty unlikely. Discussing Joe Cunningham's record in Congress now in the House, he was a very moderate Democrat. He was part of the Blue Dog Coalition caucus in the House. He's right dead in the center, right, according to his GovTrack score, which is used to show, how left-leaning or how right-leaning a particular member of Congress was or is, and he is right in the middle there. So that could play out to his benefit in this election here because, South Carolina is a very Republican state. It's R+7 R+8 according to the Cook PVI, but it probably is more Republican than that. But now let's take a look at the candidates here. I'm going to pass it over to Eric now.
Right. So on the Republican end, the very likely Republican nominee and candidate is going to be incumbent Henry McMaster, who is, as I said, current governor of South Carolina, has the incumbency advantage, passed some pretty decisive legislation on some issues such as abortion. But in a Republican state of South Carolina, the people there, approve of his work. And, he has not done anything controversial that South Carolinians think is considered controversial, which is why Cunningham has a very, uphill battle. Like, this is really not similar to, for example, a race in Arizona where Martha McSally was just an abysmal candidate. Here, it really doesn't seem like McMaster has any apparent controversies. We will see if that changes as time goes on.
Right, and as in like apparent controversies, as in like among Republicans and like among all people, of course,
Right.
Democrats might think that what he's done is controversial, but nothing like what Chris Kobach's, his political record was in 2018 Kansas, where he ended up losing because of his terrible record against Laura Kelly. And then heading now to the Democratic primary, pretty likely right now that Joe Cunningham is going to end up being the nominee. He's a pretty well known name in the Low Country, and he really doesn't have too much of a shot at winning. And looking at it right now, safe, and likely at the moment. But let's dig deeper into this. I'm going to pass it over to Eric now to talk about the Senate race that occurred recently in South Carolina.
Right. So, as Lucas is showing, 2020 Senate race in South Carolina is really one of the reasons why Cunningham is going to have a very uphill battle during this election. So, as some of you may know, as some of you may not, Jamie Harrison was a pretty good candidate to run here in South Carolina against Lindsey Graham, and the polls, kind of misinterpreted the situation. It was very back and forth, which in the state of South Carolina made it a super hot and contested race. But in the end, Harrison ended up losing by 10 points. Not because he had any apparent controversies, he was running a fairly good campaign and he did his best to reach out and exhaust, the metropolitan areas of South Carolina. It's just that Lindsey Graham's incumbency and just familiarity with South Carolinians really just carried the vote. And look, yeah, 54.4 to 44.2. That's about 10 points. What makes this a bit different is that this was an election year, so people made down ballot with Donald Trump. In 2018, they're not going to be down balloting with presidential candidates, which is why 2022 may turn out a bit differently for Joe Cunningham. But still, I don't think it's going to overcome the conservative foundation that South Carolina has.
Right, and let's also talk a little bit about the partisan of this state. It's pretty Republican here, but also discussing historical precedent. How in midterm elections, usually it's a wave for the opposition party. So using that logic, 2022 would technically be a Republican wave year, just like 2018 was a blue wave year. Although the thing is, we might be in a different time right now, considering the uncharted waters we're in right now with the COVID-19 pandemic. Potentially, Biden could end up being seen as more favorable. Like, Bill Clinton, and I believe in one of his midterm elections, he ended up doing the Democrats ended up actually gaining seats in the House and in the Senate. So potentially, we could see something like that. But it's really too early to tell if 2022 is going to be a blue wave or a red wave year exactly yet. But looking at it right now, it's a very slim chance that Joe Cunningham wins, just simply because of the partisanship of the state. It does seem like, however, Joe Cunningham's going to be running a very, very, strong campaign. Obviously, it's too early to tell that right now, but it does look like from the onset of it, he's going to be campaigning super hard, going to all 46 counties and campaigning. He seems to be trying to rack up a bunch of fundraising, just like previous candidates have done in 2018 or 2020, like Jamie Harrison did. What Joe Cunningham needs to win is he needs to do to win is he needs to get that African American electorate out there and voting for him, because as we saw previously, we analyzed how South Carolina has a pretty significant African American population. If you can get enough of those numbers out there, perhaps you can make the margin closer. And again, I don't think he can win. He's in a very uphill battle right now. But let's see how this goes. Perhaps we see higher fundraising, and that could really, really help his campaign. And that does wrap up the video for today. This was a pretty short video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this episode, please like one. If you like our content, please subscribe. And we'll see you in our next episode tomorrow.
See ya.